This episode is brought to you by Vital Farms. Isn't it bullshit to have to question where your food comes from? At Vital Farms, you can trace your pasture-raised eggs all the way back to the source, the pasture. On the side of each pasture-raised carton of eggs, you'll find the name of the farm where your eggs were laid. And when you look the farm up on their website, you'll get a peek at all the sunshine, fresh air, and open space the hens enjoy. Learn more and find out where to buy them at vitalfarms.com. Vital Farms, keeping it bullshit-free.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive. Most of you aren't just listening right now, you're driving, cleaning, and even exercising. But what if you could be saving money by switching to Progressive? Drivers who save by switching save nearly $750 on average, and auto customers qualify for an average of 7 discounts. Multitask right now. Quote today at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $744 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2022 and May 2023. Potential savings will vary. Discounts not available in all states and situations.
This episode is brought to you by Klaviyo, the platform that powers smarter digital relationships. With Klaviyo, you can activate all your customer data in real time, connect seamlessly with your customers across all channels, guide your marketing strategy with AI-powered insights, recommendations, and automated assistance, deliver experiences that feel individually designed at scale, and grow your business faster. Power smarter digital relationships with Klaviyo. Learn more at klaviyo.com/Spotify. That's KLAVIYO.com/Spotify.
Between the kids being home and hosting, everything in our house gets used up in summer. With Instacart, I can save money by stocking up on all my favorite summer brands. I save time by getting everything delivered in as fast as an hour. And I save myself a sink full of dirty dishes by stocking up on paper plates for the annual summer cookout. Save more on summer essentials? Spend more time enjoying summer. Add summer to cart. Download the app to get free delivery on your first 3 orders. Offer valid for a limited time. Minimum $10 per order. Additional terms apply.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. No matter how big you want to grow, Shopify gives you everything you need to take your business to the next level. Shopify is the commerce platform that makes it easy to show up and sell exactly the way you want to. No need to code or design. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period today. Visit shopify.com/offer23 to get started.
Welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast, your go-to source for personal, professional, and organizational growth and development. We hope you tune in often for all things people management, organizational development and change, organizational leadership, and social impact related. Maximize your personal and organizational potential with Human Capital Innovations Podcast.
Welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. In this HCI podcast episode, I talk with Charlotte Kemp about futures literacy and developing a futures thinking mindset. Charlotte Kemp, welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast.
Jonathan, thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, I am super excited to have you joining me today all the way from South Africa. It's always fun to have these conversations with people from all over the world, and I'm just thrilled to have the chance to talk with you. It's evening there, of course. It's morning here in Utah, and we're experiencing summer. You're experiencing winter, so it's fun. That's another aspect of just talking with people around the globe, right? We get to experience things at different times, different points in the year. Well, today, Charlotte, you and I are going to be talking about futures literacy and developing a futures thinking mindset. I really love the way you frame that. I also do a lot of work around the future of work, and I like to think of myself at least kind of as a budding futurist. But that's definitely the space that you hold, and we're going to have a really compelling conversation today. As we get started, I wanted to share Charlotte's bio with everybody. Charlotte Kemp is the Futures Alchemist, a futurist keynote speaker who works with organizations to co-create preferred futures. She is a member of the Association of Professional Futurists, as well as the deputy president of the Professional Speakers Association of South Africa. Charlotte is also the author of a number of books, including Futures Alchemist, which presents a narrative of how to use her map, compass, and guide model to navigate unknown futures. For Research and Insight, Charlotte hosts a podcast series called Futures Facets and interviews people around the world to gain an understanding of how we see the future from our different points of view. Charlotte's signature talk is Become the Conscious Futurist Your Industry Needs Now, and explores ways to intentionally create changes that will usher in our preferred future for our own industries. Charlotte also serves on a number of association boards and steering committees and works as an association futurist. Charlotte lives in Cape Town, South Africa, but loves to travel, COVID willing, and speak internationally. Again, a real pleasure to have you joining me on the podcast today. Anything else you would like to share with listeners by way of background or personal context before we dive right on?
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Most of you listening right now are probably multitasking. Yep, while you're listening to me talk, you're probably also driving, cleaning, exercising, or maybe even grocery shopping. But if you're not in some kind of moving vehicle, there's something else you can be doing right now. Getting an auto quote from Progressive Insurance. It's easy, and you could save money by doing it right from your phone. Drivers who save by switching to Progressive save nearly $750 on average. And auto customers qualify for an average of 7 discounts. Discounts for having multiple vehicles on your policy, being a homeowner, and more. So just like your favorite podcast, Progressive will be with you 24/7, 365 days a year, so you're protected no matter what. Multitask right now. Quote your car insurance at Progressive.com to join the over 28 million drivers who trust Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $744 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2022 and May 2023. Potential savings will vary. Discounts not available in all states and situations.
On in.
Thank you, Jonathan. So just to update my bio, I have just recently been elected as the Vice President of the Global Speakers Federation. So all of our speaking bodies around the world belong to the GSF. And of course, it's an incredible honor. But those of us who are involved in the associations world know that it just means a whole lot of extra meetings and conversations. But the reason I really enjoy this, becoming involved in associations, as a futurist, you really want a big picture of what the world is like in different experiences. So like you already said, we're having conversations from different hemispheres and different weather patterns. But the more conversations we have internationally, globally, the more we connect ourselves across these lines, the better our insight about the world is and the better we can co-create futures. So I'm really enjoying these new opportunities that the speaking world is offering me as well.
Awesome. Thank you for that update. And thank you so much for the background. Maybe you can provide a little bit of context for us just around how you got into this futures work. I remember the very first time I ever attended a talk by someone who called themselves a futurist, maybe a decade or so ago. And I'd never really even thought of it that way. Like as he was talking, this gentleman was talking, he was from the UK. And it resonated with me. And I'm like, yeah, I do some similar types of things. And so that was the first time ever that I started to think of myself as a futurist. But how did you find yourself in that space? And how did you find yourself in this line of work?
Yeah, so interesting. I started my career in financial services. I followed my father I worked with an insurance company and a bank and a brokerage and a boutique firm that designed new financial products. And all the time, I was very curious about the latest things that were happening. But like you're saying, long before we had words for this, and I'd done a kind of a regular degree at university that my father had advised me to do. And I'm kind of plodding along in my career path. And then I moved into training and speaking. And I kind of fell into some topics that I was training people on. But I felt like I wanted to invest my life into something a little bit more. So my oldest daughter was approaching the end of her high school career, and she was going to look at what she was going to study tertiary. And we sent her off to a career guidance counselor. And as soon as she was finished, mommy went to the career guidance counselor and said, I'm stuck in my career. I'm doing work that I like, but the topic just doesn't resonate with me. I want to have something a bit more meaningful. So we went through a couple of exercises and conversations, and then she recalled something from a local university here in South Africa, Stellenbosch Business School. And she pulled up some brochures and showed me about this postgraduate diploma in futures studies. And the minute I heard it, I thought, this is something that is really interesting. And the more I started exploring what this topic meant, future studies, strategic foresight, futures thinking, I felt like I'd come home. And everything that I'd ever done in my career that was kind of questioning the status quo. All the science fiction books that I've ever read, all of that just really resonated. And I just discovered something that was so meaningful. So I really invested my time and changed my entire career to now focus on future studies. And I'm loving the various conversations that I'm having. That's such a broad field that, no 2 or 3 futurists are going to be talking about the same stuff, because there just is so much that we can explore. And what is also wonderful is that around the world now, more and more universities are coming up with other certificate courses, postgraduate courses, and even further up to doctoral degrees on future studies. So it's a really well-respected, very robust academic model now as well worldwide.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you. That's so much fun to hear about the trajectory that people go on and how they end up where they're at. I think all of us tend to go on a bit of a zigzag course, right? It's very uncommon for people to just kind of from the get-go land where they're going to be for the rest of their career. And that's certainly the case for me as well. Well, very good. Very good. Let's start then by just defining a few things. We've already mentioned futures studies, future research, and things like that quite a bit. And I suspect most listeners kind of understand where we're coming from, but perhaps not. So let's talk about futures literacy. What exactly is futures literacy? Why are we talking about, how do you study the future, right? It's something unknown. It's unknowable, really, because we don't have a time machine. So what is futures literacy? What is futures research?
Yeah. So, I think a lot of it is about the narratives we tell. So when we look at history, we think history is very well defined, but you also find people telling stories on different sides of history. And if you're going to become a historian, you really want to have a bit of academic rigor there to kind of take away the perspectives and the biases and get to the actual facts and the implications of what is happening. And when we flip that and we look into the future, how we think about the future is based a lot on the narratives we're telling about our current situation and where we came from. So yes, we can't tell the future. We can't read the future in as much as we can't kind of look into a crystal ball and tell what is going to happen. But there are indications, signals, trends, drivers of change that we can become familiar with. And the work that people do when they're looking at futures literacy, and what I really focus on, is trying to give people the sense of agency over the future. Our world is changing so rapidly at the moment that, in the past, there were changes, obviously, and that things would change and there would be time for, the disruption to settle and people to find new skill sets and adjust themselves to the new way of life, their new normal. And then a couple of years or decades later, there will be another fundamental shift. That at the moment, the changes are coming so quickly, we don't have time to settle before there's something new. So we have to pay a lot more attention to what is coming into the future. And for some people, that feels like the future's happening at them. They are victims. They just have to endure this. It's overwhelming. They're scared, or they withdraw entirely. They react very badly to news that they're hearing because any change is scary. It's all labeled as bad, and they just want to withdraw into something safe, or they got this nostalgia narrative about how wonderful it was back then when things were simpler. So when we talk about futures literacy, it's trying to give people a framework to think about the future, to identify things, to understand their emotional reaction, but also to actually kind of identify a couple of trends that are happening and work out where they need to fit in. So is there a new skill set that we have to develop? How do we develop that on the fly? We can't take 3 years or 4 years off to go and get another degree. So how do we learn what we need just in time for our career development? And, what are the things we need to respond to? What can we actually influence? What do we just need to endure? Not everything needs to be endured, but there are different ways of responding. So that's how I like to unpack it. So people feel like they're part of co-creating the future and they're not just victims to it.
Yeah, I love that. I love the idea of just being proactive in all aspects of life, not waiting for things to happen to you and that you're kind of forced to respond, but rather be proactive about creating the type of experience, the type of circumstances, the type of life that you want to live. And certainly there's a lot of complexity, there's a lot of messiness and a lot of uncertainty out there. Nobody's pretending that that's not the case, but we can exert control over our path and our kind of the trajectory that we take. And ultimately that will give us a better chance of being ready for those disruptions that occur, and that we can then have options available to us so that we can lean into the change, lean into the discomfort, the uncertainty, and ultimately adapt and be ready for the shifts that we will experience in our lives, in our careers, and our professions. So I really love that. So what are some things that people can do? Anyone listening who's intrigued by this ideas of futures literacy, futures research, just futures framing, how can people begin to explore that? How can they better understand the benefits of that kind of a mindset?
Great. There are so many models, and I get excited about all the different tools we can use, which can be quite overwhelming. So what I'll give you is one set of tools about scenario planning, which I found to be very helpful, and it can be applied to anything as simple as your plans that may be disrupted because of COVID lockdowns, all the way to career growth, to the future of your particular organization or industry. So what we do when we create a business plan or a life plan or a career path is we plan one direction. We plan what we want. We've got this positive mindset perspective of this is where I want to be in the future, and we plot out the steps to get there. Or if it's a business plan, we say this is our business plan, our marketing, our financial plan for next year, and we think it's going to be 10% better than last year. So it's last year just kind of extrapolated into the future. And then something comes along that disrupts that. And disruption is interesting because if we've labeled it negative, it's disruption. If we've labeled it positive, then it's progress. So again, it's just about our perspective. So what we do with scenario planning is you want to make 3 different scenarios. You want to imagine 3 different worlds, and then you want to create a business plan for each one of those worlds. So very broadly, very roughly, it would be a good world, a utopian world, everything goes well. And then on the other side, the flip side, a dystopian world where everything goes wrong. And then the third one is that kind of the middle of the road. Yes, we're going to be making some progress, and there's going to be a couple of disruptions.
I'm excited to announce the publication of my new book from HCI Press, Bluer Than Indigo Leadership: The Journey of Becoming a Truly Remarkable Leader. Early in my adult life, I learned about an Asian proverb that translates as bluer than indigo. If you think about the color indigo, it is a brilliant, deep, and vibrant blue, what some would call the bluest of blues. To have something that is bluer than indigo is rare and truly remarkable. Contrary to popular myth, there is no one-size-fits-all or cookie-cutter approach to effective leadership. There's no silver bullet, no secret sauce, no go-to model that will solve all of our problems. The truth is, great leaders have all had their unique strengths and flaws, and have all had to discover and then pave their own distinctive path in their life's journey to fulfill their leadership potential. Bluer Than Indigo Leadership will help you discover your own path and explore those ordinary, everyday actions that will help you respond to an uncertain future and produce extraordinary results for individuals, teams, and organizations.
Now, the value of planning this is you want to really imagine as richly as you can what this world might look like that would affect whatever you're trying to plan. So if it's your career, then, where are you living? What is the industry like there? What are your chances? You want to imagine the best possible scenario. So, for example, maybe you have the opportunity to sign up the best client in the world. It's like, this is a game changer. And if you got this client, your trajectory of your career is just going to go through the roof. You're going to be world famous. You're going to earn so much money. It's going to be brilliant. And you really want to work all of that out. Picture it, get excited, feel everything. And once you've experienced all the emotion, you've daydreamed about this brilliant, perfect career choice or client or situation, you then want to create the business plan for that. What would that look like? Then the opposite, the dystopian version, the everything is negative. for whatever reason, something worse than COVID comes along, you aren't able to achieve what you're doing. If you've got a business, you might be needing to retrench staff, make some cutbacks, at work, cutbacks at home. There's certain things that you can't do anymore because we're in a really tough time and we're not sure how long it's going to work. And that dystopian, that negative worldview is very difficult to imagine. So what I normally do is advise people to do this, like maybe on a weekend, not in the middle of the day, not with other people, because if you have, a really negative emotion, if you've got a really good imagination, it could be quite unpleasant. But you want to do it. You want to have both of those extreme emotional experiences, because we're emotional people. And when we get emotional about something, we want to respond like that. And that's not always logical or practical. But if you can imagine those scenarios and you work through the emotions, whether it's the excitement or the fear and the anxiety, you work through it, allow your body to experience it, allow your mind to pay attention to what is happening. And this might sound a little bit kind of psychological, but what we're really trying to do is prepare ourselves mentally for whatever scenario might come. So for example, if you don't plan for your utopian situation and you just have an ordinary plan going forward, an ordinary scenario, life is okay, getting a little bit better, but nothing extraordinary. And then unprepared, you get that once in a lifetime opportunity. You're going to be so sad as you go, wow, this is great, this is amazing, but I can't take this opportunity. I can't actually deliver on this because I don't have the capacity. I don't have this minor skill set. I don't have the time. I don't have the flexibility, the margin in my life to be able to do that. And I'm going to have to let this one go. And for the rest of your life, you're going to be regretting that once in a lifetime opportunity that you missed. And in the negative side, if we don't deal with that kind of fire drill of this terrible thing could happen, how would we respond? Then if something terrible happens, we're going to respond negatively. I've heard of people, during COVID with the lockdowns that went to bed and put the duvet over their head for a week and a half until their wives kicked them out of the bed and said, go and face your business, do something about it. But we don't know how to react emotionally. So we want to get the emotions out the way, then create a logical, practical plan to scale up or scale down, to not take on things that we might not be able to cope with in the future. And then we want to actually plot out what are we going to do to try and achieve the better options. So those three scenarios are really, really powerful. You might, in that exercise, find new opportunities that you hadn't thought of, even in the dystopian situation, even in the negative situation, there's still opportunities. But you need to get the emotion out of the way so that our practical, logical brains can pull in all the wonderful resources that we have and create new business plans that will actually deliver something amazing.
Yeah, I really love that approach. And it's not, what you're forcing yourself to do is to not dwell on the negative, to just sink into despair and ruminate on all of the potential negative things that could happen. Of course, it could happen. And so it's useful to spend some time in that space. It's also equally as unproductive to just be constantly pie in the sky dreaming about this utopian future that also is probably not particularly likely. And if you spend all of your time chasing that, then you're not going to be in a great situation either. And so kind of forcing yourself to have these experiences emotionally and analytically across the spectrum of possibility is a really great exercise. It's a great opportunity for us to be prepared emotionally as well as kind of intellectually for the range of types of things that we might experience. And to your point earlier, we definitely don't have a crystal ball. We don't know. We can look at trends. We can look at drivers of change. We can look at, how things have changed over the last 50 years and kind of the trajectory of change moving into the future. So we can have indications, but ultimately we don't know. And so the best we can do is scenario planning across a range of possible futures and the potential of different things occurring. And I also really like how you focused on, even in the dystopian kind of future, that worst case scenario that you're thinking about, there is still opportunity in struggle. And I think this pandemic has demonstrated that. It's demonstrated a lot of things, but it's also demonstrated that there's tremendous opportunity for people who are ready and prepared to pivot during unprecedented times, during times where nobody could have really thought this was going to happen. And I don't know of anyone who really thought, go back in time 2 years, who thought it was going to play out, the next 2 years was going to play out the way it has, right? Certainly we had some understanding that a pandemic was possible. We had some understanding, that there could be some sort of economic disruption globally. Those things tend to happen cyclically. And so, there's some level of preparation people could do, but nobody knew that this was going to happen this way. Yet there were some individuals and some organizations that were just ready to go. They were ready to pivot. They were ready to adapt. And they've done incredibly well during this really horrific time that's been so challenging for so many people and so damaging and so harmful to so many people. Yet there are those individuals and organizations that have really thrived. So look for the opportunities in all of the different types of scenarios across the spectrum. It's not just about how do I survive in the dystopia. It's about how can I really thrive in that kind of an environment, as well as in the utopian scenario and everything in between.
Yeah. And a lot of it, like I mentioned at the beginning, is about the narrative that we tell. So when we really plan out, with a full exercise, plan out and design scenarios, it's helpful to then be able to have these conversations with your team or in the workplace or with your family to say, if we go in this direction, this is what the world could look like. And you can tell that story and say, is that what we want? And if that's not what we want, then how could we kind of step back and then design a different future? What story do we want to tell about the future? And the more we articulate that, the better we can do. In South Africa, years ago, we were under an apartheid government, and we wanted to challenge that and design, a more democratic society. And there were a lot of conversations, and then this was the first that for South Africa we ever heard, in our common conversation about scenario planning. And there were some brilliant scenarios designed by Kemp and some others in South Africa. And they talked about the high road in South Africa and the low road. And it just became part of our everyday conversation. If we act like this, if we react like that, if we behave this way, if we make those choices, we're going to go on the low road. And the low road is not where the society wants to go. So how do we choose the high road? And that conversation was just there the whole time, in government and business and schools, just the whole time challenging ourselves to make better decisions to choose the high road for our country.
Yeah, I love that. Well, Charlotte, it has just been a real pleasure. Before we wrap up, I thought if you can just kind of give us a final sense of why developing a futures thinking mindset is so vital. Why is it important for anyone listening today? Regardless of your role in your organization, regardless of whether you're working or you're just, in between jobs, at home, whatever, like why is fostering this kind of a futures thinking mindset so vital for us?
All right. Well, Jonathan, I'm studying futures thinking. I'm writing about it. I've got some books out. I do presentations. I do this work the whole time. So a lot of people say, well, you're the futurist, we're not. But my real belief is that we are all, as humans, we are all futurists. If we've looked at our career, if we've looked at our children's education, if we've saved for retirement, if we've planned a holiday, we are natural futurists. So we all have this idea that there's something that happens for us tomorrow or next year, and what is that going to look like? And we can get better at that. We can get better at anticipating and designing and co-creating the future if we are more literate about it. But if you're illiterate, if you don't know the language, just think about if you travel to a country that speaks a language that you're not familiar with. You can't see the great opportunities, the tourist things you need to go and view. You can't see the warning signs like, don't walk over here. You can't find where the food is. You're really lost if you don't understand the language. And the future doesn't need to feel that scary to us. So if we're natural futurists and we want to be better at it, if we want to start to feel a little bit competent with this language, then futures literacy is something that we should be developing.
Wonderful. Thank you, Charlotte. It has just been a real pleasure. Before we wrap up today, I just wanted to give you a chance to share with listeners how they can get connected with you, find out more about your work, and then give us the final word on the topic for today.
Yeah, thank you. All right. So I do every month, I put on 2 or 3 presentations, keynote type presentations with a conversation afterwards, obviously on Zoom. And I'm inviting anybody to come join us. And the reason I do that is I really try and get people from all over the world. So I've got from Mexico all the way to Pakistan and everywhere in between. And we're having conversations about the future, about future values and future technology. And the more different voices and perspectives we have there, the richer that conversation is. So if you have a look at my website, it's charlottekemp.co.za, because I'm in South Africa, so it's .co.za. There's a list there of public events, and anyone is welcome to sign up for any of those and join us. Or you can connect with me on LinkedIn, which is also really wonderful, and then we can share some ideas and I share some of my writing there. But as for a message for the future, I just really want to say that the future really is in our hands. The more we have these conversations, we co-create. It's not that I'm creating a future for myself that is at odds with other people. The way we create a future that is preferred for us, as opposed to the other things that could potentially happen, is if we come together, we have these conversations, and we work together to create the future. And we have that power and the influence over it, which a lot of people feel like they don't have, but we really do. Thank you, Jonathan.
Amen. Thank you so much, Charlotte. It's been a pleasure. I encourage listeners to reach out, to get connected, find out more about what Charlotte and her team can do for you. And as always, I hope everyone can stay healthy and safe, that you can find meaning and purpose at work each and every day. And I hope you all have a great week. The alchemy of truly remarkable leadership. Ordinary, everyday actions that produce extraordinary results. Consider how the nature of work has shifted over the past 50 years. With increased globalization, rapid technological advancement, and the shift in economic composition, the average job of today looks very different than the average job of 50 years ago. What will the jobs and organizations of tomorrow look like? Moreover, what does this all mean for organizational leaders? What are the core competencies and capabilities of organizations and their leadership that are prepared for continued disruption and geopolitical and socioeconomic shifts? Regardless of what the future holds, increasingly, leaders need to be socially minded, data-driven, decisive, champions of talent, and disruptors of the traditional notions of leadership, teams, organizations, and work. The alchemy of truly remarkable leadership will help you to explore your own leadership competencies and capabilities and consider ways to apply and implement them into your workplace and personal life. Check out Human Capital Innovations magazine, Human Capital Leadership. Human Capital Leadership is a free, interactive e-magazine with the mission to help individuals, leaders, and organizations find innovative approaches to maximize their human capital potential. We publish issues quarterly in August, November, February, and May. Take a look at the latest issue and let us know what you think. Thanks again for joining us for this episode of the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. I hope you stay healthy and safe and that you have a great week. Check out our new weekly LinkedIn newsletter, Alchemizing Human Capital, exploring industry trends via original research and interviews with executives and thought leaders from across the globe. We look forward to having you join us.